Part 2, Chapter 6. Claudette. I liked talking to him. He was the first person to understand my hair. Everyone else kept saying I was crazy or mental, but he got it. He said it was impossible for black people to have really straight hair anyway. He had seen Asian women with straight hair all the way down to their feet. No black woman could ever grow hair like that, no matter how she tried. He kept telling me to ignore what people were saying about me. I really needed to hear that. He was easy to talk to. I could relate to him. I would say things like, "The revolution is here. We need to stand up." And he would agree. But all the time I knew I was getting in over my head. He was so much older than me and had so much more experience. I knew I was getting into a situation I couldn't handle, but it was hard to stop. The slow, sultry summer finally came to an end when, just after Labor Day, Claudette celebrated her 16th birthday and returned to Booker T. Washington High for her senior year. Her legal case had died with the appeal decision, and Claudette had lost contact with all the adult black leaders except Rosa Parks. Still, riding the bus continued to anger and humiliate blacks throughout Montgomery, and impatience was mounting. Leaders such as E.D. Nixon and Joanne Robinson kept looking for the catalyst, the right person or event that would spark citywide action. On October 21st, a second teenager, 18-year-old Mary Louise Smith, defied a Montgomery bus driver's command. She had left home early that morning to collect the $12 owed her by the white family for whom she had worked the week before. But when she finally reached their house on the other side of town, they weren't home. Now she was out not only her wage, which her family needed, but also the 20 cents for her round-trip bus fare. A week of work and a trip across town for nothing. That's what she was thinking on the bus ride home when a red-headed woman appeared in the aisle by her seat and ordered her to get up and move back. At St. Jude's School, the nuns had taught Mary Louise and her siblings to respect all people regardless of their skin color, and she did. But she was angry that day. She was thinking, it's the bus driver's job to ask, and to ask politely. Muttering a rare profanity, she crossed her legs, squirmed down in her seat, and made herself very still. She heard the bus driver's command to move, but she refused. And refused again. The driver's radio call, and within minutes a policeman entered the bus and arrested her. Mary Louise was taken downtown, booked, and jailed, and she was released 2 hours later when her father arrived and paid the $14 fine. It happened so quickly and quietly that there was no newspaper publicity. By the time E.D. Nixon and other black leaders heard about Mary Louise Smith, her fine had already been paid, and it was too late to mount a legal challenge. But that didn't stop people from talking. Another teenage girl had been arrested on the bus. Who was she? Where was she from? What church did her family go to? Who were her parents? Where did they live? Soon the rumor mill was spinning out gossip that the Smith girl's father was a drunk and the family lived in a squalid shack. The truth was much different. Mary Louise later said she never in her life saw her father drunk. For one thing, he was too busy working to drink much. After Marie Louise's mother died in 1952, Frank Smith took a second job to support his 6 children. Hardly a shock. The Smith home was a 2-story, 3-bedroom frame house in a working-class neighborhood. But Mary Louise Smith, the second teenager with the nerve to face down Jim Crow on a city bus, was, like Claudette, branded unfit to serve as the public face of a mass bus protest. During the summer and fall of 1955, Montgomery's adult black activists thought hard about the buses, which looked increasingly like Jim Crow's Achilles heel. Each considered what to do in his or her own way. Joanne Robinson, E.D. Nixon, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and others continued to meet with city and bus officials, consistently pressing for black drivers, courteous treatment, and a revised seating plan. Every polite refusal increased their resolve. Dr. King thought the officials were digging their own grave. The inaction of the city and bus officials after the Colvin case would make it necessary for them to meet another committee, indefinitely more determined, he later wrote. Rosa Parks and Fred Gray met for lunch nearly every day, often talking about what could be learned from Claudette's case that could end segregation on the buses. In July, Mrs. Parks slipped away for a 2-week workshop on interracial relations at the Highlander Folk School in Tennessee. Here, for the first time, she saw blacks and whites treated as equals. She returned saying it had changed her life. The time was ripe for a change. There was a growing impatience with segregation. Claudette had crossed a line, proclaiming that at least one young Alabaman would not share her future with Jim Crow. 7 months later, Mary Louise Smith had joined her. Now, a year and a half after Brown versus Board of Education, a few brave young people were demanding a different future. Education may have been the way up, but transportation was the way out. If they were branded uncontrollable or emotional or even profane, so be it. Claudette and now Mary Louise Smith had shown through their courage that at least some young people were ready to act. Now I'm going to go back and read this one section right here about appealing a legal decision. Okay, so the U.S. legal system begins with city and county courts. The U.S. legal system begins with city and county courts, goes on to state courts, then to federal courts, and finally to the U.S. Supreme Court. If a person does not agree with the court decision, she or he can usually appeal the case to a higher court. It is tempting to appeal, to take a second chance, but lawyers are expensive, and winning cases on appeal is not always easy, as judges are sometimes reluctant to reverse the decision of their colleagues on lower courts. In Claudette's case, black leaders decided to appeal a decision made in Montgomery's juvenile court to the next level, Montgomery Circuit Court, which was still within the state of Alabama's court system. Okay, and this last section right here in Chapter 6 talks about Emmett Till. What happened to Emmett Till in the summer of 1955 was a horrible reminder of how much resistance there would be to racial integration in the South. Till was a 14-year-old Negro boy from Chicago who had gone to Mississippi to visit relatives in a small town. In August 1955, he allegedly whistled at a white store clerk and said, "Bye, baby," to her as he left the store. 3 nights later, he was kidnapped. 3 days after that, his body was found floating in a river, wrapped in barbed wire and grotesquely mutilated. 2 white men were arrested but acquitted by an all-white jury. The savagery of the crime sent a chilling message. We talked about it a lot that summer and in school the next fall, remembers Claudette. There have been lynchings and cross-burnings before, but this was a much stronger warning. Emmett Till was our age. Okay, so that concludes Chapter 6. In the next recording, I will read on about Chapter 7.